Welcome to Fake Sports, here to cover the 2026 NFL Draft. I'm Marcus. With us is Mr. Tim, producing behind the scenes. I'll definitely be making the hot tag to Mr. Tim as we talk about some of the picks tonight. But let's get started. Let's get right into it. Um, a number one, no brainer, Fernando Mendoza. The track record for quarterbacks in the last like 10 to 15 years who are the no doubter best quarterback coming out of the draft. Um, More good than bad, and usually solves a quarterback issue for those teams. So I don't think it's an accident that this team signed Kirk Cousins. I think Mendoza profiles a lot as a more athletic Kirk Cousins. I think the question is, how's a kid going to perform in prime time? Of course, we know he's coming off a national championship. But NFL, how's he going to do with the late Tom Bratmagel? Um, that's going to be, I think, his measuring stick. That's going to be how we really determine how good he is. I think it's going to be tough lifting up this Raiders team pretty quickly, but we've seen with quarterbacks, it doesn't take too long if you've got the right coach and you've got the right quarterback. It can be a quick 2 year turnaround. You usually know within those first 2 years if you've got the right combo or who needs to go, who needs to stay. So, uh, Todd, congrats on maybe getting your quarterback. We took down to two with the Jets taking David Bailey, the edge rusher, out of Texas Tech. Um, a lot of people had him mocked here. Including myself on my first mock without trades. But then it was kind of uncharacteristic for the Jets because in this new Aaron Glenn era, they haven't had a whole lot of leaks coming out of the building. And I was talking with JT about it. Um, and a lot of the actual intel had them going with Reese. And that made a whole lot of sense. And seemed like Reese was maybe a more dynamic player. Bailey, older, seems like more of a finished product. Um, not great against the run. Doesn't seem to be an every down defensive player, and the Jets right now need as much talent as they can get. So a little surprised to see them go with Bailey here, but again, seems like more of a finished product. Probably less questions about him, probably less development needed, and might be more of an immediate um, higher quality ad for the Jets right now, as there's people there definitely coaching for their jobs. So um, I don't think too many people had Bailey falling out of like even the top five. So definitely not a bad pick by the Jets. Speaking of bad picks, we're going to number three. We're going with the Arizona Cardinals as they select running back, bell of the ball, in my opinion, Jeremiah Love out of Notre Dame. I think a lot of people had him mocked to Kansas City earlier on. Then the combine happened. The measurables were off the charts, and there was no way that this kid was going to make it out of the top five. It was just who was going to trade up to get him, or were one of these bad teams who aren't ready to win, where they just going to grab him and figure the rest out later. And that seems to be what happened here with Arizona. I haven't seen any rumors on if they had a call or not. I would imagine at three, they're definitely looking at getting a first round pick back, whether that's this year or next year, or very high second. Um, and I mean, the suitors for that, you're looking at the Rams, you're looking at Kansas City, you're looking at Dallas. I think those are your three teams most likely to have the capital right now to move up without completely mortgaging the future. Of course, there was smoke there with Washington potentially moving up to go get them, with the Saints moving up to go get them, and those teams don't have the same kind of draft capital pull off a trade and move up for Love. Um, Arizona needs a lot. They need a lot. They don't have an offensive line, and I'm not being a boomer here by saying, why'd you take the running back? But you literally don't have an offensive line, and we've just seen last year when the Raiders took Genti. Um, you can have that dynamic running back that can do it all, but if you don't have the protection for him, It's really not going to make a difference. And we're how many years? 3 years now into Bijan Robinson out in Atlanta, and this season he finally like really started to break out and start playing like we thought he was going to play from day one, and they're still not winning in Atlanta. Because they still have a lot of a lot of questions up and down the roster. So I kind of think that's the same thing with Arizona here, except far, far worse. I think that roster is in a lot worse spot. I don't think the running game needed a huge upgrade like Love. Probably super cool if you're a Cardinals fan. Like, congrats, you got the most exciting player in the draft. Um, but I'm selfish here. I think it sucks that this awesome player is going to be on a bad team for the considerable future. Um, are we ever going to see Jeremiah Love play a meaningful football game with the Cardinals? I don't think so. I think that stinks. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what there is to do about it. It just feels wrong. Feels like somebody should step in and stop it. Um, I just hope that at least I had hope that earlier today, Mr. Tim, when you asked, what were we hoping for in the draft? I was hoping for bad teams to make good decisions, make grown up decisions, and actually make the boring choices to make your team better. Get the offensive line right, get the defensive line right. Um, that didn't happen here with Arizona. So they get love. Kudos to them. It's going to be fun cheering them on if you're a Cardinals fan. Um, Sick ad for fantasy, obviously, but we'll see, how well he really does with that offensive line there, and really only one other player to game plan for on offense. So moving on to number 4, another bit of a head scratcher, Carnell Tate. The Titans take at 4. I get pairing Cam Ward up with a big time wide receiver like Tate. Um, Ohio State, the pedigree kind of speaks for itself there with Tate. Um, but kind of the same thing I just said for Arizona applies here to Tennessee. They at least believe they have their quarterback solved. I think Cam Ward is going to be a good NFL quarterback moving forward. But they need so many other pieces on that team. Um, you know, Getting a receiver here, getting wide receiver 1 off the board, um, is a good place to start, but you also got to keep your quarterback upright. And unless they have the kind of dynamic relationship and connection that like a Burrow and Chase have, um, hard to see this one, paying off like this year or next year. And as exciting as like Burrow and Chase are, like, yes, they've made a Super Bowl, but they've also missed the playoffs a lot. Um, so we'll see how that pick turns out for Tennessee. Tate, no doubt, no doubts about the player. Excellent player. Feel the same way about him that I felt about Love. I wish that he either fell a little bit to a team that's ready to contend now, and he could kind of boost them over the hump, or see a team move up for him. We got the New York Giants at 5. They take Arvil Reese, the edge defender out of Ohio State. A lot of speculation with a bit of a regime change, kind of, sort of, in New York. You got Harbaugh there. And, there was a lot of smoke this week about Tyson going. And I didn't buy it at 5. I thought that was going to be too rich. Seeing Reese kind of fall right into the laps here at 5 felt like a best case scenario for them. I think they nailed the pick. He's super young there. You see, he's 20 years old. So much time to develop and continue to get better. Great pick for the Giants here. Absolutely love this for them. A grown-up decision was made by a bad team that has the pieces in place to get better. And we will also cover another pick of theirs in a little bit. As we get to our first trade of the night, it was my Kansas City Chiefs trading up from 9 to 6, leapfrogging Mr. Tim's Washington Commanders, trading with the Browns. They traded some day 2, day 3 picks to move up. Um, those picks are still supposed to be starters, so you're trading up, you know, 2 starters, and another player here at 9 to move up to 6, to grab Delane, the cornerback, Mansour Delane, cornerback at LSU. Now he is CB1 by all accounts in this draft. I didn't see any debate about that. Um, but I didn't see a single mock. Well, I did see mocks that had Delane going at 9 to Kansas City. Um, Mr. Tim, before I really dive in, when the trade came in, how did you feel about my Chiefs leapfrogging your Commanders?
I was afraid because I was hopeful. Well, I was hopeful that Kansas City wasn't going to take a pick that I was hoping was going to come to Washington, right? I've been tracking a lot of the picks and kind of like you have for Kansas City, Jeremiah Love was an apple of Washington's eye. And there were other draft or other mocks that had Jeremiah slipping to 7 off of the
Mhm.
strength of a really good defensive class, right? You're talking about the Ohio State players, um, in Styles and in the players taken before, as well as Caleb Downs. So there are players that are out there, and seeing Kansas City leapfrog, I'm like, okay, they're gonna go get that middle linebacker Styles, or boy, here's Caleb Downs, 2 players who I would have been absolutely happy to have had. Obviously, Styles is the better of the two. I think at least for both Kansas City and Washington. To be fair, with all the reports on Styles being a true quarterback of the defense, so seeing Kansas City leapfrog up, the possibilities are endless, right? There's still a couple of at this point, there's still a couple of top flight receivers that are out there. Plus, you've got players that are just slipping down the draft board. And then I see Mansour Delane get picked, and I know I'm in store for a traditional crash out from you about this pick. And like, not to take anything away from Mansour, and I guess Veach is going to Veach, and Big Red still has the hot hand, but I'm curious as to where you shake out on the Chiefs trading their first, their third, and their fifth. I think this year, or their highest first, a third, and a fifth, um, in this draft for a player who, with all the capital that's still available at this time, this is the guy.
Yeah, so when I saw what we used to move up, I said, "Oh, okay, I'm with it." We didn't give up pick 29. We didn't give up our second. I said, "Okay, let's go." Um, and then I saw that idiot Roger Goodell um, read the draft card, and um, probably the closest I've come to blacking out um, during a sports event. Um, I I stormed up, I stormed out, I put my slides on, and I took 2 laps around the neighborhood. And um, I was in shock. Not that Delane's not a good player. He's CB1 in this draft for a reason. I think every mock I saw had him going within the top 12. Um, so he's super talented. There's no doubt about that. But for this Chiefs team and their needs, and watching this team last year struggle struggle to make chunk plays on offense, struggle to get guys open and create separation. That's been an issue for the Chiefs for a couple of years now. Um, I know we got Kenneth Walker in free agency, um, but Kenneth Walker has never been a bell cow back. Kenneth Walker has always had a handcuff to go along with him to split carries. So I was pretty set on Love and moving up to go get Love, and this is the time to use those resources to damn the torpedoes and move up to 3 to go get Love, a true game changer, somebody who can pass, somebody who can catch. He's Gibbs plus 20 pounds, and a couple inches of height. Seeing Delane get picked here, with Love off the board, with Reese off the board, with Tate off the board, I said, okay, got to go Caleb Downs here. I think Caleb Downs is probably the best, if not second best player in the draft. Like right now, if you were to line them up and go play, I think Downs is best or second best player right now. So it's okay. We're gonna get Downs. Bit high for safety, but man, I know what the Chiefs defense looks like when we've got a great safety playing. Shout out the Honey Badger. Okay, let's go. I thought maybe Jordan Tyson, bit of a reach. Didn't love Jordan Tyson for us, but I said, okay, Tate's gone. Go get the offensive firepower. Let's go. Going defense here at 6. I don't love it. I don't love it. I'm glad that we didn't go with a pass rusher. That's probably the only way that I could be more frustrated than I am now. At least with corners, we have a proven track record of drafting and developing corners. So if you're going to give us CB1 in the draft and let him develop as well, then he's probably going to be a top 5 corner in the league. However, we just traded a top 5 corner in the league. So we're not really upgrading that production. We are hoping to maintain that production for a fraction of the cost. That does not make us better. That brings us to where we are, and that's 6-11. Not very good. I know that's a Mahomes injury and whatever else, and bad luck in 1-score games doesn't change what this team looked like. It did not look good for most of the year last year. So I don't know how Delane's going to help with that. Don't feel like we got better with the pick. So we'll go to number 7. Pick number 7 for this draft. And Mr. Tim, take it away.
Thanks, Kansas City. Number 7 goes Sonny Styles from the Ohio State University. This fit goes right in. It's hand in glove. Washington has had their fair share of above average middle linebackers, at least in the most recent duration, right? With London Fletcher, and then getting 1 year of a rental of sorts on veteran Bobby Wagner. But Sonny Styles being in this newly tooled, I would say curated defense by DQ, right? With all of the acquisitions and free agency, when you talk about the corner from Detroit that got picked up, from Amenahue getting picked up, Chanel getting picked up, there's and even Nick Cross at safety. There's a lot of talent that got picked up by Washington in free agency, and getting a young Sonny Styles, missed one tackle his entire last season with Ohio State. Uh, we need a young leader in on the defensive side because we have the young leader on the offensive side in JD.
Mhm.
So I'm thoroughly in love with this. The trueness in me really wanted Caleb Downs just because I love safeties more than middle linebackers, but that is personal preference. Safety's a sexy pick. Safety's always sexy, but middle linebacker's always functional, and I'll take that.
Yeah, especially Dan Quinn being such a defensive guy. Just it feels like his priorities are that front seven. Um, so yeah, getting a linebacker feels right. Especially guy projects to do it all a little bit with Sonny Styles. So probably the most like intriguing athlete in the whole draft was Sonny Styles. He I don't know if crown jewel is the right term, but I mean a lot of teams wanted him. And Washington was lucky enough to have him fall right into the lap. Let's move on to pick number 8. Speaking of falling right into the lap, Jordan Tyson goes to the Saints, who don't have to move up or down at all, in a position to just take best available player. Um, Unfortunately, Chris Olave, if you've been following for the last couple seasons, has been getting absolutely rocked. And it seems like his football mentality is catching. His football mortality is catching up to him with the concussions. Each one he is out longer and longer. So it's time for this Saints team to start flipping over some of these positions. Tyson, I think, is a guy who can project pretty well to being a number one receiver. You might want like I mean, he's pretty big. He's 6'2", he's 200 pounds. So whether you want to get like a true speedster next to him, whether you want to get an even bigger wide receiver, um, I think Tyson profiles pretty well as a pick here for them. It's just a question of with the injuries that he's had, is he going to be able to stay healthy? And what is he going to look like in the pros? Will he be that true number one receiver? But I think the Saints made a pretty good pick here, just sitting pretty and taking best available. At 9, the Cleveland Browns, who had traded down with Kansas City Chiefs, take Spencer Fano, the tackle out of Utah. When I talked about bad teams making good decisions, this was one of them. I had Fano mocked to them at 6 if they had stayed. I think this is a great pick for them. Just got to build the offensive line. Now they did have so many players leaving free agency, so it was almost almost tipped their hand a bit that they were going to go offensive line in the draft, especially with their early first rounder. But it's just what you got to do. You got to draft young and you got to build the line and give yourself the best chance to see what do you have at these other skill position groups. What do you have at quarterback with Shador? You got new coach Todd Monken there. You have, I think who else they have. You got Harold Fannin, the tight end. You took a lot of running backs over the last couple of years. You want to see truly what you have, but you need an offensive line to give everybody time to actually run their routes, execute the plays. And this is just a grown-up decision by the Cleveland Browns. 10. This pick belonged to the Cincinnati Bengals up until about 2 weeks ago when they traded it for Dexter Lawrence to the New York Giants. So the Giants, 2 picks within the top 10, and they take Samoan Francis Muaga. My bad on pronunciation there. But tackle out of Miami. This is a big boy right here. And I had him as the best tackle in this. A lot of people had him going 3 to the Cardinals. Had the Cardinals not traded down, I think that would have been a grown-up decision for the Cardinals to make. I think it's the decision that they should have made. But I love this pick for the Giants. Everything I just said about the Browns, copy and paste it here for the Giants. They get to add Reese on the defensive side of the ball, super exciting player, and they get to try to lock up the offensive line. And they got to protect Jackson Dart, and Dart also has to make good decisions. But that starts with giving him time to actually read and process, and throw the ball. We go to 11 with the Dallas Cowboys, who traded up. Um, I so they traded with the Dolphins. They just move up a spot, and they take Caleb Downs. Already talked about Caleb Downs. I think he's the best player in this draft. Um, this feels like a version of the Micah Parsons pick from a couple years ago. Um, they just picked their spot and got the actual, I think, best player in the draft. And yeah, defensive side of the ball. There were some weird concerns about like a knee. I'm not buying it. I think Downs is going to be a great player for a long time. And love this pick for Dallas. At 12, the Miami Dolphins take Caden Proctor, the tackle out of Alabama. Dolphins are probably the most, I don't know if blatant's the right term, but probably the most obvious team who is in a hard reset year. Um, Not a whole lot to look forward to if you're a Dolphins fan. Just acquiring as many good and young players as possible and seeing who can develop and who's going to stick around and try to get this thing turned around as quickly as possible there. So great pick here. Just trying to shore up the offensive line to give whoever, whether that is Malik Willis, or whether it's going to be other quarterbacks coming in and out. Got to give them time. Speaking of quarterbacks, pick number 13. Now, this was the Falcons pick from last year that the Rams had traded. They had gotten James Pierce, who has been in plenty of trouble, should probably be out of the league, should probably be in prison, YouTube terms of service. But he said sorry, and he gets to do some community service. So this pick is from last year, and the Rams go ahead and take their next quarterback of the future, Ty Simpson out of Alabama. A lot of chatter if you consume ESPN about Ty Simpson over the last month. A lot of that coming from Orlovsky. There's various reasons as to why that chatter might exist. But Ty Simpson, I think, is a starting quarterback in the league. But giving him a year, 2 years, maybe the beginning of a third year to sit behind Matthew Stafford is the best thing that they could have done, and the best thing for his development as well. I think if you would have drafted him and played him day one, he gets absolutely annihilated, and he's on the bench within 6 or 7 weeks. But actually giving him time to learn how to be a pro, learn a system, and you're learning, it's not just, oh, get drafted, sit, sit behind somebody who's done it before. Like, you're sitting behind the reigning league MVP. When Mahomes got drafted by the Chiefs and sat, he was sitting behind, Alex Smith, who got MVP votes, and was playing at a super high level. It's not always just good to get drafted and sit behind somebody. The play has to be there too. The walk has to match the talk, so to speak. So really interesting pick for the Rams. If you're the Rams, like, are you ever going to be bad enough to be in a position to take a quarterback? Definitely not next year, I would assume. Probably not the year after that. You'd have to have a true bottoming out, and just the way that roster is built, I don't think they're ever going to have a true bottoming out. So, this is probably the best way to take a stab at a quarterback without giving up any insane assets along the way. Number 14, a pick that a lot of people had mocked, is another, Samoan, I believe. But Vega Ione out of Penn State, guard. He plays a lot. This guy is for a typical just football player. Um, this is a tough dude. He's a great guard and a great fit for this Ravens team that needs to keep Lamar Jackson upright and give him time to operate, especially as the injuries start to pile up for Lamar and he looks to be more of a pocket passer. If last year is any indicator of what's to come in the future for Lamar, he's going to need more time back there. And this was a no brainer pick, a grown up decision by a great organization with a great history of drafting players. So, if you're a Ravens fan, it's not the sexiest pick, but this will help a lot and it'll help immediately. So, I love this pick for the Ravens. At 15, Tampa Bay stays put, and they have Ruben Bain Jr. fall into their lap. Ruben Bain is a player a lot of people had within their top 8, top 9. I didn't see too many mocks that had him falling past 8 to this past the Saints. A lot of people had him going to Kansas City if he did. So in that sense, I think it's great value for Tampa Bay. Um, they're as long as they're in that division, in that NFC South remains the way that it is. They're always going to be in the division hunt. Uh, Bain is he's a good player. He gets to the quarterback. There's lots of talk about the short arms. I'm less concerned about that. He can control the edge. He can get under tackles and he can put pressure on the quarterback. So I think this is a really good pick for Tampa Bay at 15. At 16, the Jets take Kenyon Sadiq, tight end out of Oregon. Interesting pick here for the Jets. Sadiq is an absolute offensive weapon. Man, you watch him move on the Oregon tape that they were showing. He doesn't move like a tight end. This dude moves like freaking like DK Metcalf or something, which is insane production out of your tight end. But I mean, they had the chance to get Brock Bowers, and they didn't. Last year they had the chance to grab some tight ends early. They didn't. And now they take Sadiq here, who's a notch below those players, even in draft profile. Just comparing college players to college players, Sadiq would still be your third or fourth option. So, exciting pick for the Jets, and I think this is a player that can help them win now. Again, Jets, you got people there coaching for their jobs, but also a team that's got to be like sick of losing. They acquired a lot of assets. They are trying to get this thing turned around as quickly as possible and get everything in place so that, maybe next year they are a team that is once again just a quarterback away. And also try to get this thing back to where it was before they brought Rodgers in, which, it's not just, hindsight being 2020. I had this opinion then too. It's you kind of rushed the process. You saw that you had good young players and you decided to hit doomsday and go for it all immediately rather than continue to build and continue to get better and let your players mature and then go get the quarterback a year later. I think they rushed the process a little bit. So I think they're trying to get back to where they were before rushing the quarterback scenario. They got Geno Smith there. We'll see if last year was just a one-off with his slip in production out in Las Vegas. And that take us to pick 17. Another no-brainer. The Lions taking Blake Miller out of Clemson, the tackle. Whether it was Miller here or it was going to be Monroe Freeling, a lot of people had Detroit taking a tackle. The center retires as a bit of surprise. Detroit has won a lot of off seasons and a lot of drafts the last couple years by doing things their way, and it has paid off. They have taken, I would say, non-premium positions at premium draft slots, and whether that's Gibbs, whether that was Campbell, they took I think taking Sewell paid off. And but like you had him at left tackle, you moved him to right tackle. Yes, he is the best right tackle in football, but now you're looking at maybe moving him over to left tackle. So a lot of those decisions from the last couple of years that led to the Lions being this hot, sexy team that everybody was riding the last couple of years comes quick in the NFL. And um, Sam Laporta is part of that draft class as well. Um, you know, those contracts are coming up soon, and guys are going to need to get paid. And now you have great players that need to get paid that are part of the identity of your team at non-premium positions. What are you going to do? So getting some fresh bodies on this offensive line for the Lions was priority number one heading into the draft. So mission accomplished there. Pick 18 for the Minnesota Vikings. They went ahead and got Caleb Banks, defensive tackle out of Florida. I didn't see this one coming. I felt like everybody had them taking Dylan Thieneman from Oregon, the safety. Minnesota, I think, is in a position to probably just take the best available as long as it wasn't a receiver. And they weren't that far off. I mean, this team beat Detroit, I think, both times last season. They played Chicago super close. They play Green Bay really tight. So I know the Vikings are a bit memeable with who's that the idiot young quarterback they have who sucks. Mr. Tim, the
JJ
kid out of Michigan.
McCarthy.
Thank you, JJ McCarthy. Now they have Kyler Murray. So a lot of questions in the quarterback room. You've got Justin Jefferson being a little bit more vocal. You don't know how long this Viking team has. You have the coach in place with KOC. But a good pick here, getting Caleb Banks. 19, the Panthers go ahead and take the aforementioned Monroe Freeling out of Georgia, the tackle. Whether Bryce Young is the long-term answer there or not, whether they pick up his fifth-year option or not, I'm not sure if they already did that or not. I don't think so. Regardless, you're going to need to keep whoever is back there upright. So this was a good decision by them. Also, them winning the division kind of by fluke. I'm glad they didn't, overreach for a wide receiver or make a drastic trade up or get too cute here. A really sound decision, I think, by a team that kind of backdoored and lucked their way into the playoffs. They played teams tough last season, so they may not be as far away as we would like to think. They're a team that probably deserves to have their file updated. But this was a good decision by Carolina to take Freeling. We got another trade here at 20 as we have, I think this was Dallas's pick that went to Miami? Let me see this real quick.
This is the Packers pick that went to Dallas.
Dallas, yes, okay. So this is part of the Micah Parsons deal. This pick finds its way now to Philadelphia, and the Eagles select Makai Lemon, the wide receiver out of USC. The notable USC wide receivers in the NFL, I think, you got Pittman, you got the main one is Amon-Ra St. Brown, and that is probably the closest profile to Makai Lemon, which is high praise. And Philly does it again. And I don't know how Howie and Philly can keep getting away with this year after year. It's disgusting. It's sickening. I'm envious. I'm jealous. And Philly gets a great addition here. Whether they decide to trade A.J. Brown post June 1st, whether they hold on to A.J. Brown and see, if any of the rumors quiet down with the Vrabel Rossini New England situation, Yeah, if you can call it that. Um, Lemon's a great pick here. Man, what a great player. Congrats to the Eagles fan base. Congrats, Brad. Man, and he slid too. I think a lot of people had Lemon going higher. Some people were talking about KC at 9. Some people were talking about Lemon going 15 to Tampa Bay. A lot of people said him going at 13 to the Rams seemed like a very natural fit, especially with the Rams having some questions about Puka. Devontae Adams, uh, maybe has a year or two left at this kind of level of production as he's been displaying. The Rams were in a really good position to kind of overflow their cup when it came to the wide receiver room. They go quarterback instead. Lemon slips all the way to 20. Philly makes a trade. Congrats to Philly. I hate it. Pick 21. Steelers, the host team of the NFL draft this year, go ahead and take Max Heineacher out of Arizona State, the tackle. Probably, again, a mature decision by a franchise that probably living off of more reputation of being a good franchise than recent track record. And by recent track record, I mean 10 years or so. Um, they did move on from head coach. They go ahead and bring in Big Mike McCarthy. There's questions about is Rodgers going to be back? What are they going to do for quarterback? Getting a tackle here is probably the safest, but also most mature pick. But that kind of being the Steelers' way, and the only kind of risk they took was getting Kenny Pickett a couple years ago, which was a decision that was like instantly like, I don't know. And it turned out to be a bad one. So, I mean, you're not going to blow this pick, I don't think, here with this selection, but is it going to help you win in the immediate? Like, what exactly is the standard for the Steelers? Is the standard still the standard? Now that Tomlin's not there, I don't know. But we'll move on to pick 22 with the Chargers taking Akeem Mesidor, the edge out of Miami. But it was a surprise here. A lot of people thought they were going to go offensive line. I even bought into the offensive line hype for the Chargers, but the Chargers have a good offensive line. It's just that they got completely bombarded with injuries. And same thing for my Chiefs. People talking about the Chiefs taking an offensive lineman early in the draft. It's not that they didn't have a group of starters for the offensive line. It's not even that they didn't have backups for the offensive line. It's that once you get to your third and fourth stringers, you are really without a prayer. There's just not that kind of depth that exists at that position in the NFL to be able to go 3 or 4 strings deep. So I get the Chargers not taking an offensive lineman here, instead going on the defensive side of the ball. Mac has come back probably for his last season, so it's a pretty good idea here, especially in this division. You're going to need to get pressure on the quarterbacks to help you win ball games. So I like the pick here, and I think Mesidor is an older prospect. I think he's 25, if I have that right. So he's pretty much a finished product, or should be, joining a team that is hoping to finally break through. Pick 23. I think another great pick for the Dallas Cowboys is Malachi Lawrence, the edge out of UCF. Man, I'm gonna sound like Gruden. This guy, what a motor. Watching him on tape, you hear about like violent football players, and like this guy fits that. He moves so quick. His hands are so quick. His feet are so quick. Um, Everything about him is quick and violent and sudden. You also see the smarts in action. Like he's not just moving based on pure athleticism. Um, you see the brain and the motor all operating at the same time. I think this is a great pick. I think this was going to be a steal for anybody who took him. I saw him going a lot later in the draft. Not a lot later, but later in the first round or into the second round in some mock drafts. So I think this was a great pick by Dallas, picking him up here at 23. And Dallas rebuilds that defense. Still coming out of the Parsons trade. This is what Jerry had talked about, is that he'd rather have the multiple draft picks and the flexibility that gives you to get high end talent at two positions, rather than just the one position of Micah Parsons. But Parsons also played two positions. So, um, you know, process I think is right for Dallas. We'll see if the actual reality of that pays off on the field. But Dallas also had a dreadful defense. So, um, good to see them go defense. I know that you hate the Dallas Cowboys, Mr. Tim. Understand that. I enjoy a good Dallas downfall every now and then, but I don't think it's good for football when the Cowboys are bad. And seeing them just be the NFC version of the Bengals with like super exciting offense, but couldn't stop a nosebleed, I don't think is good. So love the pick there for Dallas. Pick 24, we got the Browns. I did have this one mocked correctly, one of my few all night. Casey Concepcion from the wide receiver out of Texas A&M. They just need more playmakers in Cleveland. They got the offensive line help earlier, and now it's time to get Shador Sanders or whoever is going to be quarterback there. Get them a playmaker. They have the running back room handled. You took a million shots at quarterback over the last couple years. Time to add to the wide receiver room. So I think this is a great pick there. Pick 25. You have the Bears. I think I heard on TV they said it was the first time since 2018 that they've taken a defensive player. They take Dylan Thieneman, the safety out of Oregon. I had my doubts about him, and then I started doing a little bit of digging, and I was like, oh, this dude can actually play. So I think this is a really good pick for the Bears. They definitely needed some help on the defensive side of the ball. Some of those games that they got into, they got into some shootouts, and yes, that is exciting, but that is a hard way to win. So getting some more competency and high-end talent on that defensive side of the ball was a priority for the Bears, and I think overall, pretty good pick here. Pick 26, the Texans trade up. I believe this was the Bills pick. So they trade with the Bills. They take Kalen Rutledge, guard out of Georgia Tech. If you saw the Texans, they have a Super Bowl winning defense. And I know defense doesn't always carry over year to year, but I think this Texans defense will. And the question I think is CJ Stroud. He is the one who's going to determine how far this team goes. And he has, again, a Super Bowl caliber defense helping him out. They could have a more explosive wide receiver room. They had the injury to Tank Dell. If he ever comes back, he's definitely not going to be the same player. But they've also taken shots at wide receiver the last couple of years in the draft. They also have Nico Collins there. Schultz has been a pretty good tight end. So they have enough on the offensive side of the ball, and especially with that defense playing the way they do. They should only have to score 20 points a game, 23 points a game, and probably would have won the Super Bowl. So getting a guard here to help keep Stroud up and give him the best chance to succeed was the right call. Also, you're going to have a pretty big decision about what does that contract look for CJ Stroud. Is it going to reset the market? I don't think so. It's definitely not looking as promising as it was, when he was playing great his rookie season. I'm curious what that number is going to fall at, but before you make that big decision, you're gonna have to get a true read on him. So takes us to pick 27, which was also a traded pick. This was San Francisco's pick. They trade down and out of the first round entirely. The Dolphins get this pick and they go with Chris Johnson, cornerback out of San Diego State. Um, I really like Chris Johnson when I looked at him. I didn't see him going in the first round, but I thought he was going to be a steal on day two. So I think really cool to see the Dolphins take him. Again, we talked about the Dolphins just acquiring good players, and I think Chris Johnson falls into that category. We had another trade with pick 28. This was the Bills trading back again. They trade rare interdivision trade with the Patriots. They take Caleb Lamu, the tackle out of Utah. Got to continue to build that offensive line. That was their downfall, both in the Super Bowl. It almost cost them some playoff games. Will Campbell was getting absolutely cooked in big games. And also when Campbell got hurt during the season, the offensive line fell apart. So they needed to add to the depth. And, whether Campbell is or isn't an every down kind of offensive lineman, or is he going to be a second stringer? We don't know yet. But getting some more talent on the offensive line was, I think, imperative for the Patriots in this draft. Pick 29, we were back to my Kansas City Chiefs. This is the pick that was acquired in the blockbuster deal for Trent McDuffie with the Rams. They went with Peter Woods. This is another pick that I had on the money, the defensive tackle out of Clemson. I think on air they compared him to Grady Jarrett, which makes a lot of sense. I know the Chiefs used to be in love with Grady Jarrett back in the day. I've also heard him described as a bit of a baby Chris Jones. So, excuse me, that makes a lot of sense. I don't know if Chris Jones is going to be part of this football team after next season, this season, next season. I don't know how much longer he's going to play, or if he does play, if it's going to be on the Chiefs. So getting another defensive tackle in here was really important. The Chiefs they've had to rely on mid-season cuts to kind of fill that second or third defensive tackle. They also took a tackle last year that was playing really well a lot, and he ended up tearing his ACL early in the season. It was kind of the first big injury for the Chiefs that kind of derailed their season a little bit. So getting that defensive tackle position shored up for when Chris Jones does move on or is moved on from, and getting somebody who can, get to the run, get to the pass rusher, or get to the quarterback and create some pass rush. Great pick here for Kansas City. And I was really afraid that they were just going to go edge with this pick, which is a position that Kansas City has struggled to accurately scout. Going back to 23, I mean, even before then, they've spent some high picks, some quality picks on trying to get edge rusher correct, and thought it was going to be Karlaftis. It's not. Thought it was going to be Felix. It's not. So yeah, glad to see them go defensive tackle. Last three picks, we've got the Jets as they trade. This pick was Denver for Jalen Waddle. Goes to Miami, Miami to San Francisco. San Francisco trades this pick to the Jets, and this pick is Omar Cooper Jr. Now, I had the player and the team right on this. I thought that they were going to take him all the way up at what pick was that? Was that 20? Yeah, I think it picked 20. Excuse me. Let's see, real quick. I just want to double check, but I think that was the Jets' original draft pick before it got traded out of. Oh no, what pick was it at? 16. Excuse me. pick 16. So I thought they were going to pick him at 16. They trade down from that. Um, yeah, I think this wide receiver profile is great with them, especially opposite Garrett Wilson. Um, just I think they nailed the pick. I think this is going to be a very good player for them for a good bit of time. Pick 31, we get the Titans trading back into the first round as the Bills trade out of the Patriots pick and they take Keldrick Falk, um, edge rusher out of Auburn. Um, if there's one thing about a Bobby Sala team, he loves to build his team starting with the defensive line, and then building back through the secondary. So if Tennessee was going to trade back into the first round, there's no doubt going to be an edge rusher. Um, kind of surprised at 4 that they didn't go with Reese. They didn't go with Styles. Instead going with Carnell Tate. So they trade back in and they get their defensive player there. And then we get pick 32, the Seattle Seahawks. A rare occasion is they do not trade out of the first round. The Seahawks front office loves to trade out of the first round and acquire more picks. They don't, and they pick up Jadarian Price, the running back out of Notre Dame. Interesting pick here. Very interesting pick. Of course, they lost Kenneth Walker to the Kansas City Chiefs in free agency. Zach Charbonnet, I don't think is an every down back. I like Price here. I'm very, very intrigued. Yeah, I think this is a sneaky, really, really, really good pick here. I know they needed a running back. I didn't see a lot of mocks having them take a running back with that last pick. I think a lot of teams had them, either a lot of mocks had them trading out, thinking there was going to be a position player involved, but they make the pick here. They get a running back and solve that immediate need on the offense side of the ball. Smart, since JSN just got absolutely paid. You need to find cheap, productive talent on really everywhere, but especially on the offensive side of the ball. So that is our 2026 NFL draft coverage. Mr. Tim, did you have a favorite pick of the night? Be it your team, be it a pick that another team made?
I am going to be very, very biased. I'm going to pick Sonny Styles.
Yeah.
Just for the fit for the team. I think it's an easy pick. But if I have to go with, I don't want to give an exact pick, but I think the Giants did rather well with 5 and 10. That's gonna give me fits.
Mm.
I hate seeing that the teams in my division are drafting decently and making smart decisions.
Yeah, you hate to see your rivals come up, but I think the NFC East had a really good draft night. I mean, you guys getting Styles, like getting that kind of freak athlete in the hands of Dan Quinn. Really curious to see what he draws up. So biased, but I also don't think your bias overrides a good pick there. Um, my favorite pick of the night. I mean, I love Caleb Downs at 11 to the Cowboys. Um, I'm It's the one that made me feel the worst when it came in because I knew some bullish was about to come in. Makai Lemon. Makai Lemon to the Eagles. Man, just every year, whether it's a trade up, it's a trade down, it doesn't seem to matter. They just get these great players right in their hands. So yeah, Um, I think Lemon to Philly is probably my favorite pick, just because that's the one that made me like sigh. and jealous the most. So, um, an entertaining NFL draft. Trying to determine, exactly, because it is a copycat league. So just trying to like kind of pick the theme. Um, I thought a lot of tackles were going to go higher, just because we've seen, in the playoffs, just like how important a strong offensive line is. So I thought a lot of these teams would take tackles and guards earlier. So I was surprised about that. Um, getting to the quarterback is always important, but in the draft, of course, it dictates, who's coming in dictates, who's going where, but and like where the priority is going to be. But yeah, I mean, seeing the priority go on these linebackers, these edge players, they all kind of feel like these teams are searching kind of for like that Micah Parsons type player, with Reese, with Styles. So, a name that didn't get called was is that CJ Allen, I believe. I might have the name confused. But linebacker out of Georgia. Like surprised that his name didn't get called. Um, but yeah, plenty of edge, plenty of linebackers in this draft. And yeah, I'm still processing my Chiefs at 6. Still have plenty of great prospects on day 2. I think it's going to be a very exciting um, first 15, 16, 20 picks maybe of day 2. There's still plenty of talent left. Still plenty of guys who didn't go. Colton Hood, TJ Parker, Jeremy McCoy, all players who didn't go yet, that had projected first round talent. So Denzel Boston also still available. So yeah, CJ Allen, the linebacker out of Georgia, is still available. So plenty of talent still left on day 2. I think we're going to see a lot of teams trade and move up to get into either the second round or get higher in the second round. We will cover that when we do our full divisional preview for the NFL season, hopefully joined by the big homie Brett. But until the next edition of Fake Sports, this has been Marcus. That's producer Tim. And let's play ball.